Here we go, the much anticipated full moon in Scorpio. How are you feeling? This energy of April has been quite intense, and I want to talk about a few aspects that you might be going through, that you might be experiencing, and what this full moon in Scorpio is going to offer for you. Going back a little while, we had the solar eclipse in Aries, but before that we had the full moon lunar eclipse in Libra. Libra's full moon lunar eclipse started a whole wave of, I feel, purging. Libra had a tone of relationships, karmic relationships, relationships of people in this lifetime, relationships within ourselves, the balance to be restored in some kind of way. Aries came in, the solar eclipse in Aries, offering us a refresh, also pointing us in the direction of our destiny, what we feel called towards, what we are opening our hearts and ourselves towards. Although we had Mercury in retrograde in Aries as well, there was a little bit of a mix of energy, a bit of a push and pull. However, on top of that, we have been hit with a lot of solar flare activity, which I would recommend keeping an eye on because of the intensity of what's happening within our good friend, the sun. Now, that solar flare activity has been creating a lot of intensity within ourselves during eclipse season. So the energy has been naturally very active. But I want to remind you that this is happening for you. Everything that you are experiencing, even the dark, the anger, the frustration, the uncertainty, the instability, feeling a little bit unsettled, maybe even body issues coming to the surface, this is all to be looked at under the surface. Now, this is where we're going with the full moon in Scorpio. I'm going to call the full moon in Scorpio the final purge, not meaning that it is final as in we're never going to have a purge again. This is the final purge of what we've been going through over the last several weeks or month. The final purge here is when we get to really go deep in order to create the opening of a rebirth. Because of Aries season and this full moon in Scorpio, the full moon in Scorpio is going to be during Taurus season, but almost the progress of the solar eclipse, new moon in Aries to the full moon in Scorpio, it is these two energies combined together are very much about death and rebirth in some kind of way. And it doesn't have to be the literal sense. This is all about our internal shifting and changing that we're going through, the death of the old, allowing for new realizations, new experiences, a new sensation within self, a new understanding of self, and maybe even a greater understanding of direction. It can also relate into relationships and career and everything else that is going on in our life. So remember, everything is connected, but we are going into the depths with this full moon in Scorpio. So this full moon in Scorpio is happening perfectly, even though, again, things may feel a bit uncomfortable, may feel a little bit unsettling. This is happening absolutely perfectly. This full moon in Scorpio is taking us into the depths. Now, we are going to be in Taurus season during this full moon. Taurus is fixed energy, as is Scorpio. This is a time of nurturing our body, nurturing our growth within the material world, nurturing finances, moving more into a slower paced energy. And so this is going to naturally give us a little bit of a break from what we've been experiencing, although I feel the energy in around the time of the full moon is still going to be quite intense, especially given the nature of Scorpio. Scorpio archetype is a very powerful archetype. It's one of the more powerful archetypes in the zodiac calendar. And also I have to mention that the full moon in Scorpio is going to be where deep shadow work will happen. If there was going to be a moon archetype combo for shadow work, this would be it for sure. So I encourage you to go deep, to go under the surface. Now, Scorpio's archetype naturally invites us to go into our depths. However, in modern society, we've become so civilized and removed from our unconscious self, from the taboo, from what is uncomfortable for us, or even the relationships with other people. But this area within ourselves that is open for us to explore offers us incredible information, offers us an understanding more about ourselves and life itself. And when we create distance from what is uncomfortable within ourselves or with relationships or with life itself, then we are removing ourselves from a very vital component of life itself. Now, Scorpio invites us to go into the depths. Scorpio invites us to explore the taboo, the mysterious, the psyche, the underworld, life after death. As I mentioned, the deeper we can go, the more we understand within ourselves. So Scorpio naturally gravitates us towards the depths of ourselves. Scorpio archetype, as I mentioned, is fixed. It does give us an opportunity to settle into the depths of ourselves. Now, because it's a full moon, and also I should mention, we are out of eclipse season, so we have a regular manifestation practice. If you are into moon rituals, we're back on with moon rituals, with the work of the lunar cycles. So during the full moon, this is a great time for exploring our depths, and naturally the full moons do shake up energy within us, but because of the association with Scorpio, it may trigger or activate deep unconscious feelings and emotions, memories perhaps, and maybe even behaviors. So we are going to look at the shadow aspect of Scorpio due to the nature of the full moon. I look at the shadow aspects during the full moon because the full moon is a great time to look at these aspects of ourselves, but naturally the full moon will bring up some of these shadowy aspects within for us to identify and for us to work on. And then again, in the new moons, I look more at the positive attributes in order for us to open a new opportunity to work with the archetypes, the positive traits of the archetypes, to create a new intention, to create a new beginning of some sort. But as we're in the full moon of Scorpio, we're going into the shadow. One of the main shadow aspects of Scorpio is going to be the ego. So the ego can come in very strong. And this is kind of a battle I feel that we're in right now in society or in this practice. You might be working on this as well. This is certainly something I've been working on for quite some time, is differentiating the ego. Now, the ego can come in very strong and want to almost stake its claim in something, being all knowing, right? And so the ego forms from our unconscious. Sometimes we feel that we know everything. Sometimes we feel that we have an answer for everything. And sometimes also if we are acting emotionally, the ego can come in and create incredibly powerful stories that can take over our complete conscious level of awareness. Another shadow aspect of Scorpio can be revenge. This may not be in the physical sense. It can be mental, it can be emotional, holding on to stories of the past or where it feels that it has been hurt or something has been done wrong. So the Scorpio archetype can often hold on to stories of the past and brood on them and live in them and have a hard time letting them go. And now this can also be a component of Cancer's archetype as well, the nostalgia aspect, but Scorpio takes it a little bit deeper and a little bit further and can really live in the story of the past, almost making it its truth. The other is going to be manipulation. So there's a little bit of a component from all water signs to do with manipulation due to the element of water. It has a very manipulative, sneaky, sadistic energy in the shadow aspect that can be highly manipulative towards certain situations and people. An interesting aspect about the Scorpion. Now, Scorpion, if it is feeling that its life is in danger, that it is being threatened, then the Scorpion will turn the stinger onto itself and attack itself. So a shadow aspect of Scorpio is also self-attack and self-harm. If we are feeling that our life is too difficult, if we are going through severe depression, if we are going through severe loss, we may turn that stinger towards ourselves and want to harm ourselves in some kind of way. This comes from our unconscious self. So again, this is a very powerful time for that shadow work, for exploring the depths of ourselves to see what is lurking under the surface so that we can address it and so we can let it go. The final shadow aspect that I want to address of Scorpio is going to be control. Now, a lot of fixed signs have the element of control being in fixed as a shadow aspect. The fixed signs naturally like control. They can hold on to certain beliefs. They can hold on to certain aspects of life and not want to budge from that. So in the ego or just in control in general, Scorpio archetype will certainly hold on to what it feels is right. So it will want to naturally control certain situations or certain beliefs or what it feels is right. So the control aspect can also be created from fear. Control can often come from fear when we are not wanting to let go, when we are afraid of what might happen if we let go, or if we trust someone, or if we open up to a certain experience or aspect of life. So there can be a very deep-rooted fear that will trigger the symptom or the manifestation of control, wanting to hold on, wanting to remain in what has felt safe and secure and controlled. But again, control can lead to a lot of resistance in life. It can also transmute into the body and create things like joint issues and arthritis. Touching on a little bit of numerology, we also have the full moon coming in on the 23rd. This is a 5, and 5 does signify change. As I mentioned, I do feel this full moon is almost that final purge. It's squeezing us out of this transformative time that we've been in, offering us a time to go deeper within, offering us a time to go into our unconscious self, into the psyche, connecting with what feels uncomfortable, what we might be avoiding or have been avoiding, and what needs to be looked at to be released. So if you have been feeling intense emotions, if you've been feeling a fluctuation of energy, if you've been having almost ruminating thoughts and stories that are occupying the mind, if you've been noticing any kind of patterns that you want to let go, now is the time to do it. And I want to definitely encourage you to explore your depths, to explore the taboo, to explore the mysterious, to go into the unconscious, to go into areas that you might be avoiding or you might be shutting down. Now is the time to address all of these shadowy aspects, the unconscious self, the areas that may feel uncomfortable. And remember that society has become very civilized, where a lot of these taboo aspects have been almost removed from society, from regular conversation. But in history, in ancient history, this was a very valued aspect of humanity, of life itself, understanding the process of death and rebirth, exploring erotic natures, which is a component of Scorpio, exploring the taboo and the mysterious, having deep conversations, meaningful conversations, understanding the psyche. I just reminded myself of another shadow aspect is going to be disassociation. So numbing out, disassociation, addictive behavior, of course. This is a component of all the water signs because of our emotions. Our emotions are so sensitive and can invoke many difficult memories and difficult sensations from our past. So naturally, what we can do, or what we might go to, is addictive behavior. And this comes from our unconscious self. This comes from our unconscious behaviors, numbing out, disassociating, medicating, suppressing. However, as I mentioned, this is the time to dig into those uncomfortable aspects, go into some of the more uncomfortable aspects of self. And also, if you are feeling discouraged, angry, frustrated, feeling like the ego is taking over, feeling as though there is no way out of a situation, there always is. But I encourage you to write it down on paper. Let those emotions out. Channel them out, find an outlet for them, write it down on paper, write down what you're most resentful for, write down the anger, write down the sadness, write down the frustration, anything. Let it out, put it on paper, and then go into your heart afterwards and see the truth of the stories. When we take a moment to see the split between the ego, our pain, our unconscious self, our unconscious beliefs versus our heart, versus our authenticity, versus the truth of reality, a more expansive version of ourselves, we then witness our words and we then witness what is happening within our unconscious from a new perspective. And then we get to let it go. And that's why I want to stress the shadow work during this full moon, especially because of its potency and its opportunity to help us navigate our path forward after that solar eclipse in Aries, after the solar eclipse in Aries, as that was a huge opening for us to embark on a path of empowerment and our personal authority. Scorpio is a very powerful sign, as I mentioned. Now, I also want to go into the planets of Scorpio. Planet is ruled by Pluto, but it also was ruled by Mars in the earlier astrology. But I almost want to keep both of these planets together because we just had the solar eclipse in Aries that started off this initiation or started off a cycle of personal power, authority, the warrior, stepping into our own and moving ourselves towards our destiny. And also, yes, connecting with our authentic self, that power within, and not shying away from it, letting it lead us. However, when we step into more of our power, more of our authority, more of who we truly are, we are naturally going to be met with fear. We are naturally going to be met with resistance within ourselves, the stories, the worry, and it's going to come in unconsciously. That is the full moon in Scorpio. That is the big barrier that's sitting here between you and your destiny. And this full moon is going to allow you to fully release and step into your path forward and to Embrace the power and authority within yourself. As I mentioned, Scorpio is an incredibly powerful archetype. Power is a component of Scorpio due to the nature of Mars, ruling planet, previous ruling planet, and Pluto. Pluto unearths power from the depths. When we acknowledge what has been buried, what has been suppressed, what is in the depths of our psyche, of our shadow, when we see it, when we shine light, it's hugely transformative. Then we get that purged and we become more empowered. So these two planets of Mars and Pluto are hugely, hugely empowering. Given the lineup of these moon phases with the archetypal associations is extremely potent right now. And this is all about our personal power, the warrior, the warrioress, stepping into our true potential, but invoking the authority within. And some of us may shy away from it. We may feel that, we're being too much in our power, too much in our authority. That comes from societal conditioning, right? And this is, I feel, a true time to connect with our internal power. And so what is holding you back? What is holding you back from shining in your light or taking that leap of faith or starting something new or being all that you want to be, starting from the inside out? It doesn't necessarily have to be building in the tangible world, although we are supported by Taurus to do that, right? So it's first connecting with our power, seeing the blocks, the negativity, the resistance, the patterns, the old beliefs that have been getting in our way in the past, maybe what we are suppressing or shoving down into our shadow, or what is a byproduct of society and old conditionings, and how can we let that go? This is the final push. This is the final purge. So let's make it count. And then we move into Taurus season, where I feel truly that things are going to slow down a little bit as we move into May, where we can nurture this change and we can nurture what we want to create as a result in the tangible world. All right. So I'm wishing you all the best during this full moon and beyond. And I will see you again very soon. Take care.